Hey, what's up? Tim Warner here. This session is about how to clean up your speech for public speaking. And I submit by cleaning up your speech of filler words like is not only going to help in your career with public speaking, but even in your personal life conversationally. This is a subject that I've been interested in for a long time. It very much ties into my thesis ongoing in my YouTube videos, where finding your niche professionally involves the nexus or connection of identifying genuine aptitude. I realized, and I've been validated, I do have public speaking ability. 2, genuine interest in the subject matter. And that fuels me when I was at university, I took courses in public speaking. I have yet to do Toastmasters. That's honestly been something on my mind for decades, and I know it would be a really great organization to be involved in. But there would be that. And then there's the time spent. So anyway, long story short, you might have identified, or maybe you're blissfully unaware, that you rely on crutch terms like Now, I know that it's a controversial subject because some people like myself are distracted by those verbal tics, and it's going to reduce your effectiveness in communicating to me if you're doing that. But I also have friends, some are professional trainers like myself, who say that the ums and the ahs are good for the learner because they give both the speaker and their audience microseconds, little periods of time to think and reflect in between pauses. And I can see that. That makes sense. But if I were to go one way or the other, I'd prefer to have clean speech. And I just use dead silence, honestly. You notice it in these videos when I'm pausing for thinking. I don't feel uncomfortable or awkward with silence. So how do you remove your filler words? First of all, why are they there? I think they're there primarily to give your brain little micro breaks to form your next thought. But the problem with it, again, it's going to muddy or dilute your speech because you've got your thoughts, which are perfectly valid and fine. But instead of them flowing into each other naturally, they're being bridged by these stutter stop words. Would be another one. So I would say that step 0 would be to inventory. Why do you think that you use these terms? These filler, they're not terms exactly, these filler expressions. Is it a confidence issue? Is it that you really do need extra time to think, but you're uncomfortable leaving silence? Think about that. And then step 1, this is really just a one-step formula that I have that I've used over my career, and I'm passing on to you today. The trick, if you want to call it that, to removing filler words for your speech is to review recordings of you presenting and speaking. Simple as that. What's not so simple, perhaps, is depending upon your current career and your environment, how can you generate recordings of yourself that are natural and real? I mean, you could sit alone in your bedroom with your webcam and just present to yourself. That is fine. However, I would submit that in that environment, it's synthetic, fake, and which means that you're probably going to not be a natural speaker. So what I often advise in my industry in IT, it's actually pretty easy to get in front of people and present. Over at meetup.com, there's plenty of technology user groups. There, of course, I've run into people who tell me that they've got the imposter syndrome thing that's holding them back. What could I possibly present that would be useful to these people? And to that, I would invite you to move ahead regardless, because this is an important experiment for your own professional development. Even if you give a presentation that you feel maybe is subpar or could be better, when is that ever not the case in the real world? The point is you want to have hopefully more than one natural, organic recording of your presentation. At least the audio. If you've got the video as well, that's fine, because that way you can help focus in on body language and nonverbal signals that you didn't know you were giving off. But the point is, once you've got some natural speaking that you've done recorded, you can listen to it, hopefully multiple times. And there's no question, it's painful at first. I've listened to my recorded voice for so many hours, thousands of hours. I'm totally fine with it. But I know people who cringe, literally, when they hear the sound of their recorded voice, because it is kind of odd at first, because we're used to hearing our voices from the vibrations of our skulls and ear bones, and then to hear it externally like other people hear your voice, there is a difference. There's no question about it, and it takes some getting used to. I would suggest that when you review the video, the most important thing to do besides remain aware and present is to be non-judgmental. I mean, to be objectively judgmental, okay, yes, I see that I'm saying a lot here, and I think those are times where I felt such and so, you see, but not like negative, like, oh man, you say so much, it's ridiculous. No, that's not going to help anybody. You know what I'm saying? So be gentle with yourself and be objective, because what you'll find if your experience is similar to mine is after you become hyper aware of your own reliance on these crutch or filler terms, they'll just stand out like a sore thumb. And the next time you're presenting, if you do an or an or an, it'll immediately be obvious. It'll be like a bell goes off in your head. And I found through repetition, that's something else that probably going to want to get on some kind of circuit where you're presenting regularly. Volunteer in your job to conduct a lunch and learn for your colleagues. I mentioned meetup.com. You could contact your training manager and say, do you need any help with screencast instruction, or could I present a live session on such and so? These are good excuses, but there's a secondary benefit besides your own benefit in honing your speech and becoming a better professional communicator. You're also giving back to your community, which how could you lose? I mean, talk about a proverbial win-win situation. That sounds like it for sure. All right. So that, I think, is the kernel of my message for today. It's gotten to the point with me that my language is pretty clean, all things considered. I may drop in an occasional or ah. If I'm doing that in my training videos, I'll snip it out always. But when you're teaching or presenting live, it's live without an et. It's spontaneous, and there's not really the concept of the do-over. So if I throw out an or an ah, okay, fine, there's an and an ah, must have been there for a reason. But in general, my own goal when I'm giving a presentation is to make my message as compact as possible and as bereft or void of filler terms as possible, because I want a really strong signal to noise ratio. I want my message to be dense, compacted, but at the same time, easy and straightforward to understand. And I want to strip and whittle away anything that's going to reduce the aerodynamics of that message, if that makes sense. I know I'm throwing a lot of abstract terms out here, but it's, like I said, I could talk about this stuff forever. This is really one of my favorite interests of all, public speaking and effective communication in a professional sense. Now, don't get me started about the great art of small conversation, and that's been a different learning curve. Actually, that might be a good subject for another YouTube video. But with respect to professional communication, geez, you don't have to be a professional trainer to benefit from having solid public speaking skills. Just about any career position, you're going to put your role and your career trajectory on another tier if you're able to communicate clearly. I mean, we've all heard it said that generally speaking, public speaking is in the top 3 fears for any human being in the world. So by you overcoming your fears and doing it and sharpening the saw and getting better and better at it, you're already, by default, increasing your value in the job marketplace because you've got a skill that literally strikes fear into the hearts of most people. And I'll leave you with this, something that I remind my daughter Zoe of a lot. And it's not mine. I learned it from wiser people around me. And that is that courage is not action without fear. Courage is action in spite of fear. There you have it. Off my soapbox and on to enjoying the rest of the day. Thank you. See ya.